Hello, everybody, and welcome to Athletic Definition. My name is Coach Ray Z, and this is episode 95. Today, we're going to be talking about magic mushrooms and working out, psychedelics, and health and fitness. I'll be covering microdosing, the heroic dose, which is termed by I think one of the McKenna brothers. So that's about 5 grams. And then there's also a huge dose. And is there any sort of benefit to any of this? And when I mean huge dose, I mean like 28 grams, 30 grams, which would be basically eating an ounce of magic mushrooms. And if you go back to the history of mushrooms, they're older than us. There's a and I push the limits to the links here on Fireside. I have like I'll have to provide them on show notes on the podcast if anyone's interested. But I have two linked to articles and about five to YouTube, and I could only post two. Um, and there are a variety of different things covering basically all the information that I got about possibilities of benefits. And I'll start off with some countries see this as religious, like Maria Sabina. She's one of the originals. They say she was born in Mexico. There's really no record keeping back then, and I seen her documentary. There's one in English and Spanish. Yeah, the one in Spanish really is still it's a little bit different than the English one. I thought I would learn more. It turns out that she didn't even speak Spanish, her, and she doesn't really know where her parents were born. So the origins are not quite sure, but she was what you would consider a shaman, and she would take the magic mushrooms, but they would call them like Santo Reyes or Niño Reyes, the Tres Reyes, something like that. It's been a while since I've seen the documentary, and they did it all for spirituality. There's also a nice I think it's on Vox, which is on YouTube, nice little documentary that they do on mushrooms and families and how they'll take it, like one will take it and they'll take it by themselves, they'll have their own experience, but when they're done they come and they talk about it with their family participation. It's not like a bad thing like how we view it here. I'm going a lot off memory. I didn't have time to research everything, but basically the CEO to Chase Bank at the time, I guess he was going through some drama, and he ended up in Mexico. She was from Oaxaca. They said she has like a whole little town where people basically thrive because they go, to the legend of Maria Sabina. And so he came over to I believe Mexico, Oaxaca. He met her somehow. She gave him magic mushrooms, and from there he came back and told, like, since he's the CEO, or he was like the president of Chase, he was up there. He came back and he told all kinds of famous people, and then all kinds of famous people started going over there um, to meet her. And I believe he did the interview in a magazine called Life. And that was the first time in United States history that the term magic mushroom was coined, because of, I believe, his interview that he did with the Lifetime magazine. And there is this, so I'm going to talk about him. There's a guy named Paul Stamens. He's he's got a couple of degrees. One's like an honorary one, and he just knows a lot about uh, mushrooms, basically. And he has this theory that he talks about. It's called Stone Age fungal theory. And I'm also going to be talking about Caldini. Uh, he's a African martial artist who now passed away, and he would be taking large doses. So I'll kind of break down a little bit of everything. So you have the whole religious aspect, and then you have Paul Stamens, who says that, and those are the links that I provided where you could see this. Some of them are long, some of them are short. This is like things that I've seen through the years, and I just try to put it all together for you. Um, he says that the oldest fossil of a mushroom, the fungal fossil that they have, is in Africa, and that's like 1.4 billion years old. That's older than anything on Earth, older than us by like a billion years, or a record. If you look into it, it says that they're probably like the first thing on Earth, and the reason that we exist as humans, because uh, animals came from mushrooms, and we came from all that, according to whatever theory you believe. That's why I'm trying to cover a little bit of everything, but um, the mushrooms seem to be able to communicate. They have their own network. They have like what we would consider like a cloud now, or a certain social media platform that they go on. They could all communicate. In Japan, and Paul Stamets has been on Joe Rogan twice, and his shows are about 2 hours. No, I'm sorry, about 3 hours. So you can go and see 2 hours, no, 6 hours of a great interview with Paul Stamets. According to him, he was a stutter, and he took a large dose, and he climbed up a tree, watched a lightning storm, and stopped stuttering. Terrence McKenna and his brother Dennis McKenna. Dennis McKenna is still alive, and he's been on Joe Rogan as well. And I included that clip, and he talks in that episode. This is where I'm like, we need to explore mushrooms as far as like benefits for sports, for peak performance, for athletic performance. And sure enough, I'm like, I can't be the only one thinking about it. So I went and I found two articles. Actually, I found more than two, but the ones that I read and I thought were more interesting are the ones that I provided. Uh, I will, like I said, I'll include it in the show notes, or if you go to Athletic Definition, I'll provide the sources if you're interested in reading it. But most of it is it might help, because there's really truly no studies, and the studies that have been done on athletes, we're not talking high level athletes. And any high level athlete, depending on what state and where you live, some places in the United States have now started legalizing mushrooms, but really there's no one saying, oh yeah, we can use it for peak performance. Caldini was an African martial artist, and he talked about how uh, well, I say I want to get to him, but without skipping. I don't want to go to the high dose with still giving information on the microdosing. So let me finish off with the microdosing. I think that pretty much everybody now is, well, if you're not familiar with what microdosing is, you take a small percentage of mushroom, and you kind of see if there's any results. It's supposed to show already all kinds of promising with PTSD, depression, anxiety. If you take microdose is, and by the way, everything that I'm mentioning here is not medical advice. This is not me encouraging anyone to go out and take psilocybin. What you do on your own is is fine. If you're in the audience and you want to come up and tell me about your experience, I'm more than happy to hear about it. I'm happy to share my experiences with it, and I personally feel that uh, mushrooms have a lot of benefits. There's so many different types of mushrooms, and then as you start looking into the evidence of the history of it, where it comes from, it seems to kind of come out of this world, because it's so old. And and I'm going back to my notes here. I try to keep an order here this time, trying to be a better host. So on those clips that I included in the links here, um, you know, Joe Rogan's talking to Dennis McKenna, which is the brother of Terrence McKenna, and he's the guy who termed the phrase 5 grams. 5 grams is it's a lot. You'll probably start to hallucinate if you take 5 grams. I don't know if there's any like actual health benefit to that. I can't say there isn't. There's been no study, but at that 5 grams, mentally, when you come off it, because it, from what my understanding is, it has proven to open up like new pathways. There's definitely and if it helps get rid of anxiety and fear, then I would say there's definitely a benefit, but definitely because your balance isn't as good. I mean, at least depending, as I researched it more, and I'll get to it, it's pretty interesting. I think it's probably all just on knowing how to control how much to take or not. So he talks about his friend in kickboxing, that he takes microdosing of mushrooms, and that he could kind of see everything slower, and like his opponent's punches and flying knees and kicks coming at him slower. So because he could see it slower, kind of like Matrix like, he could counteract to it, and he microdoses a lot. I looked into the popularity of microdosing. You know, they say it started in. I think this might be what you. I don't know if it's an urban myth or it's the truth. I try to look into it, but they say that basically the people in Silicon Valley all started microdosing, and that's how they come up with these cool apps and technologies that they're all just using it, and LSD, and they're using it to for the creative process. It's a possibility. I don't know. I also found one article that said that someone like kind of made that up, or one person said that, and the article kind of ran with it, and now it's become like an urban myth. So who knows if that's really where it came from? But Kalindi, that martial artist, African martial artist, he talks about how they had like over so many different like potions and mixtures and ways they could take it. um so he mentioned the Zulu tribe and like the Masa warriors, and there was different like potions, elixirs you can take. Part of it was like religious, and part of it was military ritual, where you had to go out and kill a lion. I know I'd be scared shitless trying to go out and kill a lion. Like, what the fuck? I got to go out and kill a lion. I I definitely would need whatever potion they have to give me, because they're, these were young men too. Like, can't remember how old he said, but we're talking young men, and you're being told you got to come back and kill a lion, or don't come back. So they would take these potions. And also the other benefit, and this is where I say studies need to be done, or more, or I'll keep looking and see if I can come across more. One of the benefits is for like hunting. You can see or focus on things from further away. Like, you can notice plants like from 200 yards away, or they would use it as well for like running, kind of like ultra marathons. And that there was here's one for hand to hand combat, when you got to go out and it's basically kill or be killed. And then you get into, and he mentions it all on his many different speeches and lectures you can find of him. Kalindi Lee, I think, if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. He talks about how nunjitsu, which is from Japan, that's the dark martial art, that it came from mushrooms. And that nowadays, when you're watching like these kung fu movies, where like, well, not nowadays, if you kind of look back at all kung fu, they're really exaggerated, like guys flying through the air doing flying kicks, and then just like hidden tiger, crouching dragon, whatever that movie's called, they're like bouncing off the walls, and just, to me, pretty crazy stuff. Now, some of these athletes like Jackie Chan, he could really move, or Tony Jaa, in these explosive and very crazy ways, but a lot of it is like CGI, or before CGI, it's very like dramatic. And according to that, that's where people would take mushrooms. So I would take mushrooms, and then my opponent, who I'm going to fight, would take mushrooms, and then we would battle. And in the battle, that's like places where you could like throw 1,000 spears and start like floating backwards, because there's really no rules, and they would battle until they fell. And I started looking into nunjitsu, the dark art with martial arts, and that's a whole rabbit hole in itself. So I'll probably do a future episode on the nunjitsu, the dark art, and relation to the mushrooms. Um, and so Kalindi, he's also, besides a African martial artist, very knowledgeable on the mushrooms. Um, so he's the guy that I first heard of high doses. So you already know what microdosing is. Microdosing is taking a small amount of mushrooms. There's different ways you can take it. Uh, and it's supposed to help you like stay in the zone. If you're a writer, it's supposed to help you write better. Flow state, what some people would call to it. And there's I saw a couple people on YouTube. I looked up some other people two people were driving on it, which I'm not a fan of. One of them said he took 1 gram, and everybody will try and tell you, oh, this is what a microdose is. Uh, my humble opinion that people try and put it in perspective because we're so used to Western medicine that they'll be like, oh, take 2 pills, no more than every 6 hours, and you'll be fine. Or, take this and take that. And every human is different. Every human is special. Every human has different way their body works and reacts to it. And a microdose for one person could be, zero point 0.3, and then for another one could be zero point 0.5, and for another one could be zero point 0.8, and for another one it could be 1 gram. I think anything after, and see, this is just my opinion, because there's what if you happen to be like the size of Brock Lesnar? Who knows if that, a gram would be um, considered a microdose for him. That this is it's hard to say that, but that's what is considered a microdose. So I would say, in general, anything between 1 gram and less. Some people will like take it every 5 days, and you could like just eat it raw like that, or you could mix it in a drink. A lot of supplements now put in mushrooms, not psilocybin, but I myself am an ambassador, and it didn't fit here, for goat fuel, which does use mushroom for enhancement for energy, so you don't get those jitters. So there's plenty of products, and I personally love mushrooms. It's so amazing how some will just kill you, some will have psychedelic effects. Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna kind of came up with Stone 8 theory, which Paul Stamets goes over. And on the clip, it's like a cartoon description of, that basically we were just walking around, and man ate mushrooms because it was available. You see other animals eat it, you think it's okay, and then you start having enlightenment with your tribe, and then this happens over and over and over. Maybe you come up with like thoughts, and you're seeing like different. You just come up with different ideas, like possibly fire. So that's his whole theory, and then you move on to the high dose, which I mentioned. I don't really see any benefit, but I'm not saying that there wouldn't be, if you're talking for like, because Caldini talks about taking 28 grams, which is an ounce, 30 grams of mushrooms. And he says that you don't have to worry about killing yourself with how much mushrooms you eat. You basically would have to your body weight in mushrooms in order to overdose in mushrooms. And your body, it's not that you would probably puke before you can't even consume that much, and you'll most likely puke. But it's more not that your body can't take it, it's more that your mind won't be able to take it. And uh, only because of the how he mentioned nujitsu and how that evolved from the mushroom, and how in the martial artist movies now that we see there's all this extreme jumping around and going through the you know spears and dodging spears like nothing. I could see how in when two warriors from the past take mushrooms and they battle it out mentally in different realms, where some of that evolved from. Because I think when you look up the term Shaolin, it means new forest. So, I, that wasn't my whole objective when I was looking into this. And I've just seen plenty of different documentaries through the years regarding mushrooms, and starting reading the articles. And then when you tie it into how the warriors from Africa and would use the mushrooms and different elixirs to get bravery to go fight lions, and it's from Paul Stamens and other links that I try to hook up on here on Fireside, but there's a limit. But I'll include them in the show notes. There's plenty of evidence that it takes away fear. Um, so as far as like, let's say you're a pro fighter, in boxing, jujitsu, or if you go into any sort of, like I also do marathons. So if you go into any race and you stay calm, you're not wasting all this energy. There would be so many benefits, besides the fact that I personally feel that they make you nauseous, or for me, and then they can also give you like the chills, depending on the dose. I definitely would not recommend taking 30 grams and trying to walk around. Everyone's different, but you'll definitely, as far as very, very little evidence, and just those couple bro science guys that I found on YouTube, but there's no evidence of pro athletes using it during competition. Now, there's evidence of them doing other drugs, so I don't see why they wouldn't use any mushrooms. Now that Mike Tyson is retired, in fact, one of the reasons he came back is the last time he decided to come back, he was on mushrooms. There's a video that came out last year on that Paul Logan's podcast, where Mike Tyson eats like 5 grams or 7 grams right there during the show, and he talks about the benefits of it killing your ego. Um, he's given some to Henry Cejudo, which is a high caliber athlete. I'm sure he would come out of a retirement for the right amount of money. He's taken mushrooms, but we don't actually know if anyone has taken them peak performance. And I understand why you cost yourself millions, but there is like evidence of just like, I think, can't remember his name now. I think it's Doc Ellis, and I can't remember the year, maybe the 60s, 70s. I think it's been like maybe 52, 60 years, where he completed a baseball game through a no hitter on LSD. And as I looked into him, he said he was never sober in any game. And he talks about how he was taking acid and he was partying with his friend's house, and then he woke up in the morning and saw some more acid. So he's like, oh, okay, and he took it, and then he thought he didn't have to play baseball till the next day, but it turned out it was that day. So somehow he made it to the airport, doesn't remember anything in the airport, made it in the plane, got to the game, and he threw a no hitter. And I can't remember what he said, what he saw when people were like pitching at him, but it, that definitely needs to be investigated more. I would love to see more studies done on it, see if there is any. And I, he said he wasn't always sober, so that is, we don't know if it's alcohol. He said his teammates knew he was high, and the opponents knew he was high. Just no one knew what he was high on, and he didn't tell anybody till after the game was over. And he said he couldn't see anything, so he came up with some sort of signal with the catcher. That way, they could communicate. So that's one example. Not that I'm insinuating that he did it during the Olympics, but it's possible. Just to play devil's advocate. How about Michael Phelps? He's been caught smoking weed. Roy Jones, no, not Roy Jones. John Jones from the UFC. He claims he was like doing cocaine and drinking, partying all night, and then still win. And he did whip DC's ass. Cormier's during the UFC fight. So, and I think he did that multiple times. So he's like one of the only athlete to come out and be like, yeah, I was on high on cocaine and still was able to do that. But they need to do studies, I think, more on steroids. If you've ever seen a documentary, it's a great one called Bigger, Faster, Stronger. They talk about how peanut allergies kill more people per year than steroids, and how pilots are given some, and just different things that you think, well, that's a performance enhancer, it should be illegal. Like Tiger Woods got surgery done on his eyes, and instead of having like 20/20 vision, he's got like 20/40. So that's a performance enhancement. Basically what you're saying the steroid is. Sometimes when you take these enhancements, it doesn't always work out. The example that I could think of off the top of my head is Fernando Vargas versus Oscar de la Hoya. He That was the first time I ever seen Fernando Vargas with a six pack. He was jacked up. Oscar de la Hoya beat him that night. Later on that week, it came out that he was on steroids. He still lost the fight, but I think we need to see more exploration on mushrooms for sure. Because when you look back to the old hunting days, the fact that they have their own network, they're like their own cloud, and they connect and speak to each other, and it looks like the evidence is that they're around, we're around because of them. It's pretty amazing because I think LSD was created somewhere like I think in the 1930s, and according to Caldini, which to me it makes sense with the way Paul Stammen talks about how there's fungal intelligence, and with that fungal intelligence, they have their own network and they're communicating. They're super intelligent, and then when you look into the even other crazier history and such as like the John Allegro book, something of the Holy Cross, where he brings it in deeper into religion, and then I know, and I believe in some parts of India or all parts, it's one of the reasons or the main reason why cows are sacred. That's one of because that's basically where mushrooms grow, on the dung of a cow. That's not all the places. Mushrooms will come out right after it rains for 3 days, and then they disappear. And there's so many different ones that you I wouldn't go out, pick any mushrooms and eat them. That is just so dangerous. But according to Caldini, he said that anyone who's taken LSD from 1930 to present day now has contributed to the knowledge that's in the network of LSD. Everyone's experience at whatever age you took it and knowledge you had, you added it. So anyone who goes into this cloud, this network, and communicates with the LSD. You're sharing experiences from the 1930, and that's it. When you take any sort of dosage of a mushroom, it seems like inter and outer and multiple dimensions. So the origins, based on different sources, how old they are, how in Japan, they did a study where they gave some sort of fungal thing they replicated the Japanese subway system, which I believe it's supposed to be one of the most effective subway systems in the world. And then the fungal, by for the first 28 hours, just replicated like the typical subway. But after 28 hours, it made it more efficient than it actually is now. Like the routes, when I mean efficient, it's very interesting. It's on that link that I try to share on here. I know there's two for sure. So if you're interested in any of this, um, plenty of great resources, plenty of different benefits. They're like good if you just start like even vegan, and you just want to take like omelets and some mushrooms. Uh, I was gonna say spinach, but if you've seen my show yesterday, you'll know what I'm talking about. Um, the other thing too is like Joe Rogan, and I included in there. He had a Rashad Evans, who's another pro or was a pro fighter in the UFC. He didn't take it during. He said he took it 2 years after he retired from fighting, and that changed his way, and that he just felt like he wasn't feeling good, and said he felt like kind of dead, like dead carcass or something like that, and that he got an answer while he was taking on his trip on mushrooms, and that it told him that the reason you're smell like that is because you eat dead animals or dead carcass or something like that. And since then, he's become a vegan. So a lot of these experiences that people are have taken it, and from what I see with religion, there's definitely no reason why us as a society can't be mature enough to explore the possibilities of all of it being a religious, a spiritual, hunting, survival. One of the reasons why we evolved. I'm open to every theory and everything like that, but I'm also, love to try it out for just physical performance, peak performance. I can't. I don't have enough research that I actually wrote down to tell you, oh, if you do this, this will be great, or if you do that. My experiences are small, like to be like, oh yeah, for sure, if you do this. And like I said, if anyone is telling you, I'm going to tell, like to me, if you go and you know some supposed shaman, and maybe there is, and hopefully you do, or somebody that tells you, yeah, you need to take 3 point or point 0.7 grams to microdose and it'll be perfect for you, they're full of shit, because no one knows. Everyone will have a different experience. To me, it would be the best and most effective way to do it would be to do it in a spiritual way, pray, uh, on an empty stomach, so you feel the full effects. And that would be my best advice. But as I mentioned, I'm not endorsing anyone, especially in the illegal states or countries where this is illegal. But I just, for those people who maybe always thought it was a bad thing, now uh, they're using it a lot for treatment. And let's look at the benefits that it could bring. And why not use it for peak performance in a more natural way? It's a plant and it's been around forever. If we could eat it and it helps us with reducing fear, reducing anxiety, trauma, and maybe just as a society, like has been suggested, if people take it without taking it to try and cure trauma, and just take it for exploration to new realms. And that's what Kalindi meant by like taking 30 grams or more. And that's maybe how innovation, and at some point, our brain just took off, and there's no scientific evidence of why our brain took off. And me myself, I've tried different supplements as well with mushrooms. So if you are interested, I'll be putting the link to as well to the goat fuel, the energy drinks. They're supposed to be now available like in California, Florida. Can't remember other state at Targets. So far, I've gone to 3 different Targets. No luck. So the best way to buy it, if you want to buy it, is through the online, and you can get my discount link for that as well. And that is created by Jerry Rice. That's like his endurance uh, performance drink that he takes, and the way he's always been, it's like quality, uh, like substance, because otherwise he wouldn't be associated with it. He's always been like conscious of what he takes in his body. And so for that, if you want to save some money on a great product, let me know. I'm happy to also send you the link as well. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Basically, covering magic mushrooms for workout performance, psychedelics basically in fitness. And there's more articles coming out. And I want to see it with the peak athletes, like if you could see, just for example, the flower 200 yards away and focus on it more, couldn't you see the basketball rim that way better? Couldn't you focus on driving to the basketball rim better? Couldn't you, as Joe Rogan mentioned, his pro fighter, didn't mention names, kickboxing friends, uh, he says he knows people, and he knows one that he's good buddies with has taken it. So it helps you avoid punches, helps you get a goal quicker. Why not be able to take it? If it helps you get in the flow state, that's what everybody wants, to achieve that flow mental state. I've been there before, and you just know when you're in it. I've been in it a couple times, and like for example, basketball, where every time you just shoot the ball, it's gonna go in the rim, and it doesn't matter if like the guy's playing a defense on you or not. It's just your day, your whatever. You could be throwing it up left-handed hook, and you're like, it's going in, and it goes in. That's one of way for me to describe flow state. Other people will be like just kind of being really in the presence is another way to describe flow state. And that I could relate it to doing jujitsu, when a 200 plus 250 plus male is on top of you and trying to choke, you know everything breath out of you. That's being really, really present, really in the moment. And so I could relate that to that. And with different supplements, with mushrooms now, just got to be careful. I'm not a big fan of supplements because most of them are not made in this country. And so the ingredients always seem to be off. That's why most of the ingredients, or basically any supplement, you go to a GNC, which is like a major chain, at least in the West Coast, of supplements. If you take any like thing you bought there, and there's a link to, I think it's USADA on the UFC, they have a list of things you can purchase that doesn't contain steroids, and pretty much everything that you can buy for consumption to the average person has some sort of steroid, even though it's not included in the ingredient. And that is because, from my knowledge, they do it in giant batters, and then they don't have in other countries. So let's say they're putting like supposed whey protein with mushrooms. Well, the previous batch, could have had steroids, whatever they were making, and they don't have like a health department that comes in and does inspections, so they don't really clean the giant batter well, and then now you're getting more calories than you think you're getting. So if you do buy any sort of supplement, be very careful who you're buying it from, do your research. And then with the mushrooms, there's so many new companies too, just providing different types of mushrooms and saying this and that. So try it out. It may not, might maybe the brand, it may be just in work for you. And if you're gonna do any sort of like high dosage, I'm not responsible. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just talked about uh, the fact that it's been taken and people could consume it without really having to worry about death. You'll just be really, really sick, and mentally you probably won't be able to take it. But there's records of people all the way to the 80s consuming 40 grams, 30 grams, and being able to take it. Like I said, besides that mental neuron, which would help somehow in peak performance, the more relaxed and new neuron pathways you get. Overall, I don't see any sort of benefit. And I don't know, there's not enough documentation on microdosing to tell you you can take it for this or that. I will get back to you on any sort of experience that I get. So thank you everybody for joining. I hope you enjoyed magic mushrooms and working out. This is Athletic Definition with me, Coach Ray Z. And this is, I believe, episode 95. So thank you, everybody, for your support in over 50 countries. I hope I shared some information with you. Thank you, everyone in the audience. If anybody would like to come up and share their experience about mushrooms that they've had, even if it's not for peak performance, you're more than welcome to. Or if maybe you've done it for peak performance, some people say that like a Kundalini yoga can give you a lot of same results that you can achieve through, uh, you know, taking magic mushrooms. And I have not done Kundalini yoga yet, and I saw someone doing it. Very interesting breathing techniques. So we'll see, and I'll give you a more future in depth on a second one, depending on what you guys think about magic mushrooms, and see if the audience reacts. So thank you so much for joining. Have a great weekend. I'll be back next week, every Thursday and Friday, live here on Fireside at 6 p.m. Pacific time zone. Thank you, everybody, for joining.